FayWhat show, we want to introduce you to interesting people like Michael over at Compass that are super important to our LGBTQ plus community. Today is no different. Today's interview is with the one, the only, Miss Cathy Renna from the National Task Force. I am so excited about my interview this morning. I mean, this chick is like, she just slays. She's an incredible human being. I call her a friend, and she does so much for our community. Let's just get started, all right? So you can love her just as much as I do, all right? She is a communications industry veteran. Her name is Cathy Renna. She has worked with groups like GLAAD, Move On, and the American Lung Association, and now she's the communications director for the National LGBTQ Task Force, baby, where they just recently finished up their 30th anniversary Winter Party Festival, and she's still wearing the shirt. Welcome to the FayWhat show, Cathy Renna.
Thank you.
How are you, Mama?
Sweet.
You know that you are one of my favorite people, like, in the universe.
Well, I love that.
Tell me that you've cleaned that shirt since Winter Party.
Actually, I did not wear this during the event because anything I wore during the event was disgusting and sweaty and went in the garbage. Like, seriously. Because
was it that bad?
It was super hot.
Yeah, like, you guys, like, it was crazy. So the winter party was a couple of weeks ago, folks. And if you weren't down here, you missed out. Make sure you get your tickets for next year. You know, what is it? A couple thousand gay boys on the beach having a great time for that last party.
More than a couple.
What do you think? 4?
There had to be at least 5,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Wow.
Yeah, I've done big events, but it was my first one too.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, super
because
fun.
you got on right before the world ended. So you weren't able to see it in person at Winterfest.
Lockdown. I mean, I've always worked with the task force my whole career, but I loved them. And so when, I was working with them on Queer the Census, we were working on some of the post-2020 COVID sort of crisis communications, and then, it was just, Kiera took over, and who does not want to be Kiera Johnson's communications director?
Oh my God, hello,
She's the bomb. Yeah, she is so great, and she has taken us into the next 50 years, because we're like, this is a big year.
It's a huge year.
50th anniversary.
It's a huge year. Well, we got to talk about that in a little bit. Another thing that I'm glad about that you're here with us for is that, it's Women's History Month, and I'm a big fan of all you do. And how important are the women on which the shoulders that we stand on? How important is it to spotlight them, not just only on Women's History Month, Cathy?
I mean, it's important, I think, because there are tons of women who just, we don't know their stories because they got lost.
Yeah.
I mean, doing the 50th anniversary work has been really fun because I've been able to talk to some of these women. We had Ginny Apuzzo was the task force executive director in the early 80s, like when AIDS was just like, it was a nightmare. People were dying. There was no funding. And she lives in Fort Lauderdale and she's in her 80s. And, people know who Harvey Milk is.
Yes. But they don't know who she is.
But they don't know who she is. And she was our first woman executive director.
Wow.
And I had her actually join the staff for a Zoom call. And to see these younger activists, some who were not even born in 1982 to 1985, it was really interesting to have them hear from her because the things she talked about were not that different from some of the challenges we're still dealing with.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It was the same when I did the Stonewall 50 stuff. Like, some of the women who get lost, the stories that get lost in history.
Many.
Particularly trans women.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. Real. I mean, we finally, I think, in 2019, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera kind of got their flowers like in a huge way, in a national way for the whole community, which I don't think had really happened before. So
incredible. Yeah. You've got such an incredible team over there at LGBTQ plus at the National LGBTQ Task Force. How's my future ex-wife, Myra?
I see. Yeah, Marita, as I like to call Marita, my boss, my supervisor. She's great. We just had Creating Change, which was awesome. And we hadn't been in person in several years, so it was intense. We had over 3,000 people.
Incredible.
And it's, it is a lot it's a family reunion, and like most family reunions, there might be a few spats.
Of
but
course.
Like, it's not Creating Change without that. And that was her first one as deputy executive director. So
what a big one.
A big one. And she's also like, her job is really about building the infrastructure of the organization, especially coming out of COVID. So she's been working to bring in staff. So like our new field director, Ray Liner, who's been actually left Winter Party early to go do work in Tampa and with other Florida partners, because we're doing a lot of work in Florida.
You really are.
And because
You've got to, because we're a mess. We're just like a complete mess, Cathy. Cathy, give me 1 second. Side piece, my teleprompter went off. Can you help me real quick? Let's talk about creating change. I lived in San Francisco for a couple of years, right? And the Tenderloin was a place that I didn't go to. You didn't go there at night. It was just not safe for women, for men, for anybody. And we recently did a story about 3 incredible trans women who have started a trans district.
Yes, that's where the conference was.
Shut up!
Yeah, we were at the Hilton Union Square. So it was awesome. You'd be walking through the hotel and you'd look outside and you see these big signs on the street signs that said trans district with the trans flag.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was happy because I used to go to San Francisco a ton when I worked for GLAAD. We had an office there. And yes, to walk from Union Square to the Castro through the Tenderloin was a little scary, And so it's really nice to see that part of the city is being not just revitalized, but finally honored for the folks who were there, been there for, decades, struggling and not getting the support they needed, and now starting to get some of that support. It's actually really cool.
I thought I was going to tell you some news that you didn't know. Yeah, right. Come on, get over on Cathy. I just thought that was such an incredible story when we did it here at the FayWhat show, because it's like 3 trans women doing, you're not going to give us our own space? Don't worry about it.
Take it.
We'll get our own space on our own.
Make it. Yep.
We're going to take it and make it. Side piece, my screen is still not working, sir. I'm sorry. Let's talk about the incredible Miss Kira Johnson, right? So, God, man, I love that woman, her spirit. And the reason I also had mentioned Myra is because, just the spirit of your team as a whole, everybody that you have brought in is integral in every little motion that you guys do. So I saw Kira on CNN.
Ah, yes. In the middle of everything. I'm like, Kira, can you go on CNN, please?
And I'm like, where did she find the time to go on CNN?
She's like, I'm trying to do 20 million things. And all right, fine.
But she had to be, and nobody else could have answered those questions like that. It wasn't Kira.
Yeah, no, it's really was interesting to go from creating change to Winter Party, because the intensity of seeing each other after not seeing each other for several years for a lot of folks, particularly trans, non-binary, and communities of color, who'd been through so much trauma since 2020.
So much.
It was so exciting to see each other, and then there was that recognition of why we hadn't seen each other, and it was a lot. It was really, really interesting and hard. And I think we just people do not understand just how much we're under attack. I mean, when we talk about the 50th, we were founded in 1973, and I keep saying 2023 is starting to feel more like 1973 all the time. Roe v. Wade gets overturned, right? That was 73 was the year past. We're seeing a level of attack on trans people at the state level, and we're here, and we're doing things like Winter Party because stuff starts in Florida and then gets shopped out. It becomes sort of like a testing ground for this stuff. And so the anti-trans bills, taking away trans-friendly health care, erasing us from school curriculum, and not just queer people. We're talking about, let's take out critical race theory.
Black history. Let's take those out too.
It's really going to be an incredibly challenging couple of years, because it's this year, hundreds of bills, and we're going into a presidential election cycle. So it's going to be super heated. And that's why, when we had people say, why are you in Florida? Why are you because we're here. You want to start boycotting hotels and hospitality? Who works there? We do. Our people do. All our people, queer people, people of color, and so, immigrants, it's so that's why we're here. And we leave a lot behind, which is really, really, truly important. So
there's so much work. I was talking about, on my first year of the FayWhat show, you were kind enough to be on, and that was during that crazy time. So it was via Zoom kind of deal. The virtual world. And my very first guest on the FayWhat show was Kira and Myra. And we both cried there just because of what the future was holding. And here we are a year and a half later, and she's on CNN having to explain to people that drag queens don't kill children, that guns kill children.
Correct.
Simple enough. Explain the well to me. How is it that? How did we get here?
Well, I think we got here because we saw this country just get turned upside down by Trump. I mean, it was happening before, but that I always say that he created a permissible climate of hate.
Yes.
And that
he opened that door.
Really opened that door and kind of allowed this sort of like ugly underbelly that's always been there, but it empowered them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a difference between being like a marginalized, you know, far right group of folks who are, you know, transphobes
racist and fascist
and fascists and
but are hiding it. Right?
I keep thinking about my dad because he grew up as a teenager under Mussolini in Italy, and if he was here seeing what's happening, he would be saying, I know what this feels like. This feels very similar, right? So it has given these folks permission, and they are like, I'm not joking, like these are the same talking points from 1973, just you have to take out the word gay and you put in the word trans. You know, grooming, you know, a danger to children, you know, parents' rights, like all of that is, it's old. But it's fear. Yeah. It's fear and it's ignorance, and it works.
And it works.
And that's why they keep using it and doing it. And they're doing it with part of our community that even our own queer family sometimes not so much gets trans issues. Yeah. Certainly talking about kids is still a challenge, you know. And as somebody who's worked with trans kids forever, like all these kids that are out there speaking, and I met them when they were 4 and 5, you know, and now Jazz Jennings is at Harvard.
Yes, yes, she is.
You know, and now all the gender cool kids are like heading off to college, and and I have a 17-year-old who identifies as bi and who has a ton of friends who are trans, queer identified, gender fluid, and they don't understand how we could have made all this progress and now we're going backwards.
Gone backwards, but I mean, so extremely going backwards, Cathy. So, really you know, we got side piece. My teleprompter went off again. Roe v. Wade, our drag queens attacked. Okay, our poor children that are non-voters are the most affected, right? Being dead named and not being able to be their true authentic self, not being able to have a safe space at school. Is marriage next?
Well, you know, I mean, that people were celebrating the passage of the Respect for Marriage Act. Fine. But you realize that we're having to pass laws to protect rights that we've already won. Like, that is a bit like mind-boggling if you think about it. So, yeah, I mean, the Supreme Court is a scary, scary place for us right now.
Yeah. You
know, you're looking at the decisions coming down between now and June around, you know, all kinds of things. And, you know, that's what I think this is what gives me some hope, right? I think both within our community and in the larger culture, people are starting to understand that, you know, we're not these siloed groups. We're not like, I'm not, as we always say, like, I'm not a woman on Monday, a lesbian on Tuesday, a mom on Wednesday, Italian on Thursday, an immigrant, whatever.
You're all of those on Monday.
All of those things all of the time. That's why we actually have that, you know, all of me all the time campaign. But that's what we are beginning to understand better, is the intersections, which helps us understand our commonalities, right? So when you start to see an organization that looks like the task force, because the task force looks like our community.
It does.
You know, you go on a Zoom call with all our staff, and
it looks like the United Colors of Benetton.
And it should. Like, it's
that's how it should.
It's about, like, I don't know if I can say the F word. It's about fucking time.
Thank you.
You know, I can't believe it's a news story in the Advocate that we have 3 or 4 organizations being led by Black queer people. Kelly Robinson from HRC and Kiera were on Jonathan Capehart's show not too long ago. And I love Jonathan.
We honored him. You honored him last year, and he's an incredible man.
He's amazing.
He sat with us. He sat with us on the panel at the task force, and he was just phenomenal. He was just phenomenal.
And he interviewed them, and it was about, you know, all this crazy laws that are, you know, they're trying to pass. And at the end of it, he stopped the show and he said, "I just want everyone to take a moment and take a look at the fact that we have 2 Black women running 2 of our largest queer organizations." That's all.
That's it. Period.
Right.
Cathy, are we not mad enough? Are we not scared enough? Are we not organized enough?
You know, there was a very interesting moment during Winter Party. We had a VIP reception and Kiera spoke, and, you know, she was talking about all kinds of things. But one thing she said was, you know, especially here in Florida, you've got, you know, kids getting on buses to go to Tallahassee and protest. You've got parents standing up for their kids. And then there was a moment where she said, to the crowd, and this was not in her written speech, she just ad-libbed, are you all doing that much? Are you doing as much as these kids? And it was so interesting because, it's all the more privileged of us. And there was a moment of like silence. And yes, so my answer to that is we are not mad enough. And not just being mad, like being engaged. Like you don't have to be out in the streets every day. You don't have to go work for an organization. Volunteer, write a check, have a conversation with somebody. Like we can all be engaged in very simple, everyday ways. No matter who we are, no matter what we do. You don't have to be wealthy, you don't have to have a gigantic amount of free time, but you can find ways to find a point of entry, to getting active because honestly, like, these are pretty dire times and we need everybody.
A couple of weeks back, the kids had a walkout on February, I think it was like February 23rd or something. It was all over the country where people walked out. Well, all the kids who walked out here in South Florida all got in trouble. And it's like,
good trouble.
As an advocate, like I think to myself, like, man, like, I feel beat down sometimes. We do all these news stories about all these attack and all this hate to our community that sometimes it's like, like, do I have it in me to keep fighting? And then you see these kids that are broken down even before they're 18.
Right.
I pray for them. I pray for those kids being misgendered. And I pray for those kids that are not allowed to get their gender affirming care. I pray for those kids I pray for the parents that have to see their kids struggle even more.
I mean, we talk to, families all the time. They basically, families in Texas, they move. There's a fantastic organization called Rainbow Railroad. They basically help refugees get out of countries where it is unsafe to be LGBTQ. Well, guess what? The call's coming from inside the house now. They're based in Canada and they're getting calls from places like Mississippi and Alabama and Florida and Texas. I mean, it's really just like there's a handful, literally like just like a half a dozen states that have not had anti-LGBTQ laws being introduced. Like even in New Jersey, I mean, don't think you're safe because you're in the Northeast or on a coastal steer in California, wherever you are. It's
nobody's safe.
And it's also because it's really at the local level. Like when we did work during the midterms, we had our field staff in Central Florida, in Lakeland. We knew pretty much that we were not going to be successful. But
you were in Trump country.
You have to be on the ground. You have to develop the relationships, and you have to think of this as a long game. This is, we are now looking at a completely stalled Congress. Like, I don't know what's going to happen in Washington. So our work legislatively and policy-wise needs to be at the state level and working and supporting and collaborating with the folks who are really, like, they are absolutely, like, on the ground. They're at ground zero for this stuff. And it's literally their lives, their kids' lives on the line.
24/7.
Yep.
Let's talk about something fun because I need to
we need fun too.
We need some kind of fun. This year's National LGBTQ Task Force, it's 50th year.
I am older than the task force, but yes, the task force is 50.
It's the 50th year. No, I just thought about that. Holy crap.
50 years is a big deal.
That is a huge deal. Any surprises, anything that you can tell us about? I mean, it's monumental, 50 years.
It is. It's really quite amazing. I mean, I always joke that one of the most exciting, exhausting things I ever worked on in all these years is the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. But the early 70s were huge. So the task force is celebrating 50 years. So is Lambda Legal. So is PFLAG National. So is CBST, the queer synagogue in New York City. Also Whitman Walker Clinic. Like, it was such an important time in our movement's history. And I think that's what we're hoping to really push out there to help people understand. I mean, we did a huge launch at Creating Change. We were able to celebrate 2 anniversaries at Winter Party. We have the gala, of course, in the fall. And then we might have some surprises up our sleeve. We do a collaborative event at the Stonewall Inn in June for Pride with the Imperial Court. We do the Wall of Honor, and it's a really moving, wonderful sort of way to honor, like you said, the untold stories,
the untold stories,
and
definitely.
folks who really contributed to the community and the movement. But, we might have a few other tricks up our sleeve.
Okay,
We're
because
having fun with
it takes me time to figure out what I'm going to wear, Kathy. You do understand.
Hey,
like
go
when they were like,
70s,
hey,
go
red,
70s,
white.
Go 70s.
70s.
Yeah, we're doing bell bottoms and.
Shut up. We are not. She wants me to show up in some crazy outfit. And I'll be like, I'm here. And with a big old afro, and I'll have like, really cool outfits.
Let's not
and
even,
stuff.
like, she would be so there.
She would be all about it. I could see Kira in like the silver jumpsuit, right?
She will slay.
Right?
She will slay.
No, but that girl will slay anything. See, I need time. That's why. Like, a year before when it was red, white, and you, I was like, all right, I got this.
Yeah, that was awesome. We all wore red, white, or blue.
We all wore red, and it was just amazing, and I loved it. And, Athena Dion was a part of it, and you just had such incredible people. Every year you outdo yourselves, and that's a very difficult task to upkeep. So, no pressure. But last year was the bomb. Last year was amazing. So.
Well, we got a lot of help this year. We got a lot of folks who really are excited and interested. So
Jeff and Garrett, all those people, that whole entire team of people. My God,
I have to say that the Miami events, like I'd never been to Winter Party, and I've worked on big Pride events. And the volunteers, there are literally hundreds. It is so organized. It is it's such a well-oiled machine there. They've got it, and they're lovely, and they're having such a good time.
And they're having a great time.
And they know why they're there.
They know the
not
purpose.
Just there, right. They say give back, work hard, play hard, give back. There are very few. There are only like a handful of these big sort of circuit parties that are fundraisers for organizations. And so they get it. They get that they have a responsibility, and it really is. It was something. It was something. And the gala, same thing. These people come back year after year after year, make this happen. We're not a big staff. We're 30 and change.
No, and you see the same faces every year because
stuff.
they want to be there.
Yep.
They know how important it is for them to be there.
We had one of our house captains at Creating Change ran the Welcome Center at Winter Party, and I'm like, how are you still standing? I am barely able to physically get through this weekend, and I'm only doing the PR part. Although at the end they're cleaning up after the beach party, we all dug in and.
Oh, I bet. Again, Cathy said that every day, whatever shirt she had to wear for Winter Party had to be burned.
Gross.
Like you couldn't even get inside a hotel room or go in her suitcase or nothing.
Goodbye.
It was just
Disgusting.
nasty. Just full of gay boy sweat. You should have sold it.
I bought the staff one.
You should have sold that dirty shirt on eBay or something. I'm telling you, it would have made some money. Cathy, how do you juggle all of this? Okay, family, kids, pets, crazy Italian family, like all that kind of stuff.
Crazy Italian.
Does your partner give you hell? Like you were telling me that you kissed your wife and be like, okay, see you soon. I gotta go.
So let's talk about Karen.
Let's talk about Karen. Hi, Karen.
I don't think you have met her, have you?
I haven't. I only know her through Facebook.
She used to come to gala. Well, I know. Everybody always says that. Like, even my family in Italy, the first time I went to Italy, Karen, because they knew her. They knew her, and they see what our life is, right? So, right. I mean, you if you see my social media, the balance is the balance. The balance is having a job that I love that doesn't feel like a job. Like I always say, it's not a profession. It's like a vocation. Like it feels like that, but also having a life. Like I have a big family. She has family. She's amazing. My wife is just like awesome. And
well, she puts up with you, Kathy. So she's got to be amazing.
Well, that's I don't know if that's awesome. That's a full-time job. Yeah, I'm okay though. I'm a good cook.
You're awesome.
We get to do fabulous things.
And what you said was so true. It's like, the balance. Like I'm constantly trying to find the balance. Okay, yeah, I want to go. I want to help. I want to advocate. I want to be a part of this. I want to do service here. But I also need to take time and be a good wife sometimes. And you do that. Like on your social media, you can tell where it's like, it's family time. I'm not dealing with anything. I might check my email twice just to let everybody know.
Well, and she's good about letting me know that. It's about, communicating, because it's easy to get really not sucked in, that's not the right word, but just feel so responsible that you're doing this work, you got to do it all the time, you can't miss an email, you can't miss a phone call. And that's also part of the culture at the task force, that there needs to be balance. We were checking on each other all day through Creating Change and Winter Party. You okay? You need a break? We actually, in our run schedules, have, breaks and rest time put in. It's so easy to get caught up in this stuff, and feel like you have to do everything. And then yes, like my family is ridiculous. Like the kids are just, they're everything. The kids in my life, the little ones, Karen's nephew has kids that are just like so freaking adorable. And my niece's little ones are just, they're delicious. And
don't you think that kids that grow up around the LGBTQ plus community are just more
girl, my 6-year-old great niece, you misgender somebody, she'd be like, I'm so sorry, Nikki goes by he now. And this is like her older sister's friend, or my daughter goes by Mars now, and if somebody uses her, you know, her birth name, they're like, she's like, no, she goes by Mars now. You know, like these kids are, you know,
they're way ahead of the game.
She teases me about us being married. Oh, right, you can get married now. She's 6.
Yeah, she's 6 years old.
And she's got,
she's more in tune with our community than some folks I know. So
these kids coming up, like, it's really interesting because, you know, like the teenagers, the 20-somethings.
Look at Max Fenning. You had him speaking at Creating Change. I mean, that boy is just incredible. And I forget that he's 20 years old. I met him when he was 17. And
well,
it's like,
X Gonzalez was at Creating Change.
Yes.
And they are, I mean, they're one of my favorite people in the whole world.
Yes,
but they are.
Their speech was
super
incredible.
Powerful at the gala, right? But then they came to Creating Change, and they were on a plenary. Fine, they came with their parents again, but they also went through the whole conference and experienced the larger community. I mean, they just graduated from college with a degree in activism. So, there's the deep end of the pool.
There it is.
We probably got like 12,000 job requests by the time they left. But it was, you know, this is a very empowered generation, and they know how important it is to get involved, and they know how important it is to vote. So you've got my daughter, 17, she'll be 18 in September. You've got these kids coming up, and they take it for granted. They don't understand. And that's fine. That's what we've been working so hard to do. Yeah. I don't blame them for that. I just want them to know their history.
That's it. That's important.
They know their history. And yeah, no, they do. But that's the hope. That's where the hope and the joy can come from, is that, you know, we need another generation to come up. We need some of these old transphobes to like go away. And, you know, we need to just keep working at it. It's a lot of this is cultural change. I've said it to, you know, a bazillion reporters when they're talking about, you know, all these bills are introduced, and you know, there's some of them that don't pass. But the mere introduction
is enough,
which causes the conversations that are filled with misinformation and lies about us and trans youth and people in our community, that's damaging.
And dangerous.
It's dangerous. There's not enough information out there. It's not, you know, we're not talking about marriage or the military or things that people conceptually understand or learned more. We're starting with a deficit in education particularly around trans and gender issues, and it's, you know,
uphill battle.
It's going to
be a long battle. It just feels like we're going at a snail's pace and then taking 3 steps back and then going one little step up, and it just it's frustrating. What inspires you, Cathy?
What I was just talking to the kids. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, kids and old people too. Like doing the stuff for the task force for the 50th, I'm getting to meet with folks that, you know, were involved in the early days. And there's this one guy, he literally cold emailed me. It was so fun. He's 91 years old. He was on our founding board. He lives in New York City across from the LGBT Center, but he's not like, you know, he's 91, like 2010.
Yeah.
And I went to visit him at his apartment, and he pulled out all of this stuff from the 70s. Like, I'm getting them digitized because they're not even betas. I don't even know what these tapes are. They're gigantic. Like the David Susskind show, 1973, 1974. Google David Susskind if you don't know who that is. My mother watched David Susskind. Things like homosexuals coming out of the shadows. Like, these were the first folks who were willing to go on TV, on a talk show, and be themselves and talk about themselves without any shame, talk about being people of faith, talk about being gay. Like, and he's still around. He ran for city council in the 70s, and I want him at the front of that Pride March in New York City. Oh, I gave away a surprise. Anyway.
I knew it. I knew she'd give away something.
We'll be there with him, you know.
Oh, my God.
And that's going to be really, you know, watching folks like that get their flowers, and also seeing young people connect with them is really, you know, that's the joy. The people.
Cathy, we need to clone you. Like, make like at least 100 of you. Maybe we'll get farther.
That would be scary.
I mean, maybe
Don't
for
tell
your
my
wife, right? 100 Cathys? Oh my
The
God.
one could stay home all the time.
That's
Yeah.
true, and then you know, and
Do
then,
the laundry,
and then you wouldn't
you know.
miss her. No, then she'd be like, "Can you please go do something
exactly.
outside?" Right? How can we help? How can our viewers help? What can we be doing? Where should we be? What link should we be looking for? Where should we be donating? Tell us.
I mean, for the task force, it's easy to find us. We're on all the social at the task force. Our website is thetaskforce.org. But the thing people can do is like get involved locally, get involved where you live, get involved in your community.
There's organizations in every community.
Organizations everywhere. And the thing is, we need to all be tied together. We need to be collaborating more. We need to be partnering more because we are up against such an onslaught that there's being isolated or being siloed is not, we're not going to be as successful. It's going to take too long.
And not taking care of all the letters in our acronym.
Well,
okay,
that's beside the
listen,
point, right?
but again, together, we're not going to win shit, Cathy, okay, unless we stand together, and we have issues with that. So
we do, yes. Well, I say this all the time, like, we have to educate ourselves. I did not know a lot about trans issues when I became an activist in the late 80s, early 90s. I learned.
And I'm still learning, and I'm still learning, and I still make mistakes, and I correct my mistakes, and I ask questions, and I'm not afraid to ask questions. And you might get somebody that might be pissed off at you because you're the 10th person to ask them on the wrong day when they lost their phone. Okay, well then you ask the next person. Okay, and that's it. Cathy Renna from the National LGBTQ Task Force. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for being on the FayWhat show. You know that every time you're down here, your ass is in my bed.
And I'm going to be, well, all right, we'll rephrase that later.
Karen, you know what I meant, girl.
Anytime I'm here, which is going to be more.
Good.
Like, we're doing more.
Good.
We'll be back. I'll be back.
I love you, Mama. I love you so much. Thank you for all you do.
You're so welcome.
Make sure that you follow Cathy Renna on all social media. Make sure that you know what the task force is doing. Find out how you can get involved and how you can help. Trust me, you tell them, hey, I want to volunteer. They'll put you to work.
We'll put you to work.
They will find something for your cute butt to do.
That's right.
To rust, all right? We'll be right back.
LGBTQ+ news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ+ community.